Ever heard the saying that history is written by the victors?
Well, it's especially true when you're talking about 10th century England.
We're diving deep into a royal scandal, folks.
Think power struggles, a teenage king, and a cunning Abbott who might have just rewritten history.
This is the story of King Edwig and Dunstan.
And let me tell you, it's got more twists and turns than a pretzel.
Picture England in the 950s.
The throne was basically a revolving door, kings popping in and out faster than you could say, well...
Consanguinity.
Exactly. Marrying your cousin was all the rage back then.
So we've got Edwig, this young king who comes to power, and, well, he starts shaking things up.
Which, as you can imagine, didn't sit too well with the established powers.
Enter Dunstan. Powerful abbot, master strategist, and maybe just a little power-hungry.
He'd already been an advisor to kings, experienced the highs and lows of court life.
But things between Edwig and Dunstan go south pretty fast.
Dunstan ends up exiled.
Was this Edwig flexing his royal muscles?
Or was Dunstan playing a longer, more cunning game?
Then there's this incident, this scandal, that really throws fuel on the fire.
They call it the threesome incident.
Okay, I have to get this.
The story goes that Edwig skips his own coronation feast.
Bold move.
He's found with his fiancée, Elfrith, and her mother,
Oh my.
and who bursts in on this, shall we say, intimate gathering. Dunstan drags Edwig back to the party, crown in hand.
Talk about public humiliation.
But here's the kicker.
I'm listening.
This story,
Yeah.
it only shows up in accounts written by Dunstan's supporters.
So like decades after the fact.
Exactly. It makes you wonder, doesn't it?
If this was a carefully crafted smear campaign,
To make Edwig look bad and Dunstan the hero.
so maybe we can't take everything at face value.
It's like trying to solve a puzzle with only half the pieces, and those pieces might be, well, a little bent.
So Dunstan's exiled, ends up in a monastery.
But he's not exactly twiddling his thumbs.
What's he up to?
His allies are still in England.
Stirring the pot.
You bet. Whispering in ears, sowing seeds of doubt about Edwig,
And Edwig's reign.
starts to fall apart.
Coincidence? I think not.
Eventually, the kingdom splits in two.
Edwig's power is shrinking.
His younger brother, Edgar, takes over the north.
Was Edwig a bad king?
Or just outmaneuvered, it's hard to say.
He did make some powerful enemies.
And let's not forget that marriage to Elfrith.
Ah, yes, the cousin thing.
Well, Edwig's marriage gets annulled.
On grounds of consanguinity.
Convenient timing, wouldn't you say?
Very convenient for Dunstan.
Edwig dies young under mysterious circumstances.
And who steps into the power vacuum?
Dunstan's back in the game, pulling the strings.
From exiled abbot to kingmaker.
And he wasn't done yet.
What do you mean?
Remember, Dunstan was a master of narratives.
He controlled the story.
He and his allies made Dunstan out to be a saint.
And Edwig.
The bad guy, of course.
So Edwig, the young king who tried to assert his power,
Ends up demonized in history.
while Dunstan, the exile abbot who orchestrated his downfall.
Becomes a revered figure.
Talk about a PR coup.
It makes you think, doesn't it?
About who's telling the story and what their agenda might be.
Exactly. It's a lesson that's as relevant today as it was 1,000 years ago.
So is Edwig truly a terrible king?
Or just a victim of a very effective smear campaign.
We might never know the full truth.
But this story reminds us to be critical of the narratives we encounter.
And to remember that history is often written by the winners.
The ones who control the story.
We've only just scratched the surface of this royal drama.
Stay tuned, folks. There's much more to uncover. It's easy to get caught up in all the political drama. But you know there's a human side to this story, too.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking about real people with real lives.
We have a teenage king trying to figure things out, a powerful abbot with his own ambitions, and then there's Elfrith.
Who history kind of brushes aside.
Exactly. She gets reduced to a pawn in their game.
It makes you wonder about the personal relationships and the dynamics at play.
Well, there's actually something interesting. Dunstan had a history with Elfrith's family.
Really?
Their family's lands were in the same area of Wessex.
So there could have been an existing rivalry.
It's quite possible they had some bad blood between them.
So this wasn't just about abstract political power.
There were personal connections, maybe even old grudges fueling the conflict.
It adds a whole other layer to Dunstan's motives.
Was he truly acting in the best interests of the kingdom?
Or was this a chance to settle some old scores?
It's hard to say for sure.
What about Elfrith, though? What do we actually know about her?
Unfortunately, not as much as we'd like.
Because the historical record is dominated by men. in
Exactly.
their biases.
So it's like trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing.
And those pieces might not even be from the right puzzle to begin with.
Precisely.
But there are some clues
Oh, definitely.
that suggest Elfrith was a woman of influence.
Even after the annulment.
So she wasn't just sitting back passively.
No, she was actively shaping her own destiny.
Tell me more.
Well, she went on to marry Edgar after Edwig's death.
Okay.
And she played a key role in her son, Ethelred's rise to power,
Ethelred.
later known as Ethelred the Unready.
Ethelred the Unready.
But that's a story for another time.
Definitely a story for another time.
The point is, Elfrith was a major player in 10th century English politics.
And a powerful woman in her own right.
Absolutely. We might not have every detail of her life.
But it's clear she wasn't just a footnote in history.
She was a force to be reckoned with.
Okay, let's shift gears back to Dunstan for a moment.
All right.
We've talked about his political skills, his ambition, maybe even a bit of a vengeful streak.
Right.
But he was also a devoutly religious man.
It's true.
So how do we reconcile those two sides of him?
Well, that's the thing about history.
What do you mean?
We're dealing with complex individuals, not just simple heroes or villains.
Right, people are complicated.
Exactly. Dunstan was a product of his time.
When religious belief and political ambition were often intertwined,
He wasn't just using religion as a tool.
he genuinely believed in it.
He saw himself as a defender of the church.
And he was also a capable administrator.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
He was instrumental in the monastic revival happening in England at the time.
So he wasn't just power hungry.
No, he genuinely believed in the importance of monasticism.
And its role in society.
He saw monasteries as centers of learning, piety, and social service.
He was a complex figure.
to say the least.
And we have to remember, we're looking at him through the lens of history.
A history written by his supporters.
So there might be sides to him that we don't see.
Aspects of his character that didn't make it into the official record.
It's like we're only getting part of the story.
Always.
It makes you wonder what else might be missing from our understanding of the past.
It's something to think about.
Definitely. You know, it's interesting.
What's that?
Even if that threesome incident was exaggerated or even fabricated,
Right.
it still tells us something important about the time.
What do you mean?
It shows how powerful an accusation of sexual impropriety could be.
Oh, absolutely.
It was a weapon
to destroy someone's reputation,
to undermine their authority,
especially in medieval society,
where sexual morality was hugely important.
and even more so for those in power.
Right. Any hint of scandal could be devastating.
It seems Dunstan and his allies understood that
They used it to their advantage.
very effectively.
It's amazing how some of these tactics still resonate today.
It's true, even though the context is different.
We still see attempts to discredit opponents through personal attacks.
And smear campaigns.
Some things never change.
It seems that way.
So we've got political intrigue, power struggles, religious fervor, personal vendettas, and a healthy dose of scandal.
It's quite a story.
It's like a medieval soap opera, but with much higher stakes.
And that's what makes it so fascinating.
It's a glimpse into a world that's both familiar and completely foreign.
Full of ambition, betrayal, and the struggle for power.
As we wrap up this part of our deep dive, what's the biggest takeaway for our listeners?
I think the most important thing is to remember that history is rarely black and white.
There are always multiple perspectives.
And layers of complexity.
We should be wary of simple answers and easy narratives.
Exactly.
Because the truth is often much more complicated.
History is messy.
And that's what makes it so interesting. It's amazing how this story from over 1,000 years ago still feels so relevant today.
I know, right? It's like those themes of political maneuvering, reputation management, and information control are just timeless.
Like that threesome incident, true or not, it was brilliant political spin.
Totally. It played on those deep-seated anxieties about sexual morality.
Painted Edwig as weak, unfit to rule.
And Dunstan, he's the hero, swooping in to restore order.
It's a classic example of how a good story, even if it's based on shaky ground,
Can have a real lasting impact.
we see the same tactics today, right?
Oh, absolutely. Rumors, leaks, carefully crafted narratives,
All used to shape public opinion.
and influence how we vote, what we buy, who we trust.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? About how much of what we believe.
Is shaped by forces we might not even be aware of.
It's a good reminder to be critical, question what we see and hear.
Especially in today's world with so much information coming at us from all sides.
It's like we're all amateur historians these days.
Trying to sift through the noise and figure out what's real.
Exactly. And This whole story has made me think about something else, too.
What's that?
The everyday people in history, the ones who don't get the headlines.
The ones caught in the crossfire of these power struggles.
We tend to focus on the big names, the kings, the abbots.
But it's important to remember all those other lives. The farmers, the artisans, the families.
Their stories often get lost.
But they were just as real,
Yeah.
just as affected by these events.
It's a good reminder that history isn't just about dates and battles.
It's about people.
Their lives, their hopes, their struggles.
And their silences, the stories that never got told.
Oh, I like that. The silences of history.
Those are important too, you know. They remind us that we never have the full picture.
There's always more to discover,
More to learn.
more to understand.
That's the beauty of history, isn't it? This ongoing conversation.
We keep digging, keep questioning, keep reinterpreting.
And with each new discovery, our understanding of the past and of ourselves gets a little bit richer.
Well said. We've covered a lot of ground today, from political scheming to the silences of history.
And from 10th century England to our own time.
It's been a real journey.
It has. And to our listeners, we encourage you to keep exploring, keep questioning, keep those critical thinking skills sharp.
Like, if you're enjoying these deep dives into history, science, and culture, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Until next time, stay curious.